Hello and welcome to the Kelowna Art Gallery. My name is Victoria Verge. I'm the Education Coordinator of Adult Programming here at the Gallery. Thanks again for joining me for our video tour series of our current exhibition, Northern Pine, Watercolours and Drawings by the Group of Seven. This exhibition is guest curated by Ian Thom, Curator Emeritus of the McMichael Canadian Art Collection, and it will be on display here at the Gallery until March 7th. So in our last video, we covered the early days of the Group of Seven and their initial formation, but today we will be taking a closer look at each of the original members. Now, between 1920 and 1933, the group saw a total of 10 members. The original 7 founding members are the artists whose works that are featured here in this exhibition. This is consisting of Franklin Carmichael, Lauren Harris, A.Y. Jackson, Frank Johnston, Arthur Lismer, J.E.H. Mcdonald, and Frederick Barley. Later on, A.J. Casson was invited to join in 1926, Edwin Colgate in 1930, and Lemoyne Fitzgerald in 1932. As we discovered in our last video, these men met through their work in commercial design and their membership in the Arts and Letters Club at Toronto. This exhibition focuses on the watercolors and drawings produced by the original 7 founding members. Each of them had significant practice as draftsmen and were regularly employed in commercial design or teaching. Many of the pieces we will explore today demonstrate an intuitive understanding of pattern and design that are developed through working in the advertising and design business. So who exactly was the Group of Seven? Let's find out. We'll start by exploring the backgrounds of each of the founding members, beginning with Franklin Carmichael. Franklin Carmichael was the youngest member of the group and had formal training in Antwerp at the Royal Academy of Fine Arts. Himself, along with Johnston, Lismer, Mcdonald, and Barley, worked at the Toronto design firm Grip Limited. Carmichael continued to work full-time as a commercial artist even after the others had left the profession. Following his marriage in 1915, his commitments to his wife and family precluded his joining other group members on sketching trips in Northern Ontario. In the 1920s, he resumed sketching with group members, and in 1924, he traveled with Harris to the north shore of Lake Superior, a spot he would repeatedly return to. Although Carmichael worked in many different mediums, he distinguished himself as a watercolorist. He believed that the medium would be as powerful as oil paint. With it being transparent, it relies on light being reflected from the luminous white of the paper beneath. It'll achieve these beautiful jewel-like effects when properly applied. Lauren Harris was born into one of the wealthiest families in Canada at the time. His financial independence enabled him to attain a university degree in Toronto, study art in Berlin, and then focus his creative energy on painting, while also lending support to other members of the group. When he returned to Canada in 1908, he began producing images of neighborhoods in Toronto. Mostly the Ward District acted as his inspiration for many of these sketches, characterized by the ramshackle houses and impoverished people. In 1916, he visited Algonquin Park and worked together with Tom Thompson, and in 1922, he first visited Lake Superior with Jackson. In these years, his focus turned to the Canadian wilderness, using decorative compositions reminiscent of Art Nouveau forms. Another great subject for Harris was the Canadian Rockies, which he first visited in 1924 and would make many return visits even after he moved away from painting landscapes. Harris also developed an abstract practice separate from the group while immersing himself in theosophy and philosophical spiritual beliefs. Alexander Young Jackson, or A.Y. Jackson, began his artistic studies in Montreal, but later trained in Paris in 1907 He is one of the most widely traveled out of the group, who never married or had a family and was therefore left to devote most of his time to his art. After several trips through Europe, Jackson returned to Canada in 1913, which is when his professional career truly began. Jackson sketched in nearly every region of the country, and in his rapid yet confident style, you can even see in his sketches the notes that he made to himself about color and light effects for future reference back in his studio. Jackson was the first member to visit the Arctic in 1927 on the Canadian ship the Beothic, which you can see in some of his sketches here. The drama and beauty of this landscape changed Jackson. In 1958, Jackson published an autobiography, A Painter's Country, and the self-designed cover of this really shows his sense of humor and his ability to poke fun at himself. He had become known as Père Raquette, or Father Snowshoe, from all his winter sketching in rural Quebec, an area he had a particular fondness for as well. Francis Hans Johnston, who later changed his name to Franz, trained in Toronto and Philadelphia, and like his colleagues, worked in commercial art. His work has strong visual designs and often reads as very illustrative and graphic. He withdrew from exhibiting with the group in 1921 and formally resigned in 1924. He exhibited with the group only once in their inaugural show at the Art Gallery of Toronto in 1920. He did participate in sketching expeditions to the Algoma region of Ontario, but he feared that his association with the group would have a negative impact on his career, whose art took a more conservative approach. He is quoted as saying, "I don't want to exhibit with a group where nobody can tell if a painting is mine or Jackson's." Keeping in mind that the initial reception of the art made by the group of seven was not entirely positive, and they were in fact seen as wildly avant-garde painters of ugly landscapes. Arthur Lismer was born and raised in Sheffield, England, and after completing his training at the Sheffield School of Art in the Académie Royale in Antwerp, Belgium, he moved to Canada in 1911, settling in Toronto and going to work at Grip Limited. He was a devoted family man and was known for taking his wife and children on some of his sketching trips with the group. He was a habitual draftsman and was said to be constantly drawing. He was a gifted illustrator and was truly enamored by his adopted home in Canada. Not only was Lismer an accomplished draftsman and landscape painter, but he was also a passionate art educator. He would go on to teach and administer programs at a number of art institutes across Canada and abroad. James Edward Hervey, or J.E.H. Mcdonald, was the oldest member of the group and is sometimes seen as its founding father. He was born in Durham, England, and at the age of 14, he moved with his family to Hamilton, Ontario. He studied at the Hamilton School of Art and moved to Toronto at 16 to continue his studies at the Central Ontario School of Art and Design. He was employed for a number of years at various design firms, including Carlton Studios in London, England, and of course Grip Limited in Toronto, where he became an art director and supervised and encouraged many of the future members of the group. Early in his career, he produced some fine watercolors and drawings. He traveled and painted Canadian landscapes with the rest of the group until their disbandment. He was also the principal of the Ontario College of Art. However, his duties as principal, combined with his work as a designer, caused him great stress, and he suffered from a stroke in 1931. Upon the recommendation of rest from his doctor, he and his wife went to Barbados, where the new climate inspired him to continue to sketch the landscape until the day he passed away in 1932. Frederick Horseman Barley, or F.H. Barley, was also from England and received his technical training from the Académie Royale des Beaux-Arts in Antwerp, Belgium. He moved to Canada in 1912 and quickly found work as a designer at the Toronto-based firm Roos & Mann until 1917. He began painting in Algonquin Park with his future group colleagues in 1914, but from 1918 to 1919, he served in France as an official war artist, an experience that deeply affected him. Barley displayed a strong graphic sense in his work from the beginning. He was also known as one of the most accomplished portraitists of the group. In 1926, he moved to Vancouver, where he took a position at the Vancouver School of Decorative and Applied Arts. He was greatly influenced by the coastal landscape of Vancouver and aimed his focus on capturing these coastal scenes in his work. He made just one trip to the Arctic in 1938, where he produced a significant group of watercolors, drawings, and oil sketches. These are the men that formed the Group of Seven, perhaps the best known, best loved, and one of the most influential historic group of Canadian painters. These sketches and watercolors come together to bring to life the important friendships, family relations, and romantic inclinations that they formed while also evoking their nationalistic northern wilderness ideology. Join me next time for our final tour video when we conclude this series by analyzing the disbanding of the Group of Seven and the formation thereafter of the Canadian Group of Painters. We will look at the influence that the Group of Seven had even after their final days. In the meantime, be sure to check out our other educational resources for Northern Pine, Watercolors and Drawings by the Group of Seven from the McMichael Canadian Art Collection on our website, www.kelownaartgallery.com, or follow us on our social media platforms to stay up to date on everything that's happening here at the gallery. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.